A hybrid Azure Active Directory, I am going to demonstrate how do we configure the Azure Active Directory within hybrid connectivity to on-prem. And during this session, I'm going to help you configuring the ADFS services also, and then configure a hybrid integration between both these services. So let's begin here. And when I'm beginning here, so I do already have a few machines. Uh, Before we get into those, let me actually tell you what are the machines I have here and how I'm going to use those machines. So I do have a infrastructure set it up. Let me tell you what we have into these infrastructures. So I do have a few client machines. I have named them as lon-cl1. I have another one which is named lon-cl2. Both of these are Windows 10 machines, and I'm going to use both of them as our client machines during this session. Then I do have another machine here. I'm going to use this lon-dc1. As the name says, this is my domain controller. I do have a machine called lon-ds1. I'm going to use this machine as my Azure AD Connect server. I do have lon-svr1. I do have lon-svr2. Both of these machines are the Windows Server 2016 machines, but I'm not going to use them mostly into this particular session. They would be just available for me for any references. Uh, I'm not going to use them for any specific purpose though. Then I do have another machine, lon-web1. This machine I'm going to use for multiple purposes. Like I'm going to use this as my public DNS server. And along with this, I'm also going to use this machine as my ADFS server. So I'm assuming that we do already have a knowledge of our Azure Active Directory, and based on that, I'm going to build this session. However, if you don't have the knowledge of Azure Active Directory, then let me tell you, the Azure Active Directory is a cloud-based identity and access management solution, which is built to provide the authentication and authorization services for the cloud-based applications, such as when we're talking about any application such as the software as a service applications, or you talk about any platform as a service applications. So when we hosting those applications at the cloud, and if we need the authentication and authorization, then we need some cloud-based services that can offer the modern authentication. Unlike the Azure, Active Directory based authentications, which is well suited for on-prem, but they are not widely accepted for the cloud-based applications. So this is where the Azure Active Directory is playing a vital role in most of the organizations today, where they offers us the options to go ahead and use a cloud-based identity and access management solution. So I do have all these machines ready. I would go ahead and get started with my WAP machine. There I'm going to configure certain settings to make this ready for my internet. So as we go into the Azure Active Directory, so we need to understand a fact that in order to use the Azure Active Directory, we will require to have certain cloud-based public DNS, sorry. So we need to have a publicly registered DNS. So I would have a publicly registered DNS. I'm going to use that. And that publicly registered DNS, I would be actually going ahead and configuring into my web machine to use as a cloud-based, DNS server to offer the name resolution to my cloud-based resources. So here I'm going to go ahead and get started with this machine. So in this machine, if you see, I do have a DNS registration utility. This is provided by one of our partners, Lab on Demand. I'm using the labs provided from them, thanks to them. So I'm going to use these labs. So here, using this DNS registration utility, I'm going to go ahead and kind of create certain details. So you see that it is asking the company name, the public IP address. So let me detect the public IP address because this machine should have a public IP address. So this could take a few seconds. So hang on before we move. All right, so here we go. This is the public IP address that I'm going to use. And I'm going to kind of go ahead and make note of these certain details. And here, see, whatever details it basically has detected, I'm going to kind of go ahead and keep them here as it is. So if I want, I basically could go ahead and make a change to this company detail, and I can give her some different name suffix, so it will generate certain values for me. I can actually go ahead and use them. So let me just register the DNS records. And I'll wait until this is created. You see that NS record I have here, I would require this NS record. So you see that it's basically getting registered to the OneLearn DNS, and I would make a note of this particular information, which is says company E4247. So let me make a note here into a notepad. (4247) that I need. So I have just saved these details because I needed them. So I would now, I would actually be going ahead and creating a DNS server later, and I would be using it. So the entire DNS name suffix that I'm going to use. So here you see that NS company 4247.1learn DNS. So I would actually go ahead and I would be registering this information here for later purpose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the DNS services here, or maybe before that I'll log into Azure portal. And into the Azure portal, I'm going to go ahead and I actually do have some credentials available with me. I'll use those credentials to log into my Azure account. So again, all these details are provided to me by the Learn on Demand systems. I'm using those information from them. The MFA is not enabled at this moment, so I would be able to log into this without any problem. And now I will go to the Azure Active Directory page, and into the Azure Active Directory page I'm going to register a custom domain here. So see that my display name of this directory has been given as Contoso. I would be not changing it, but I'll go ahead and add a custom domain. So let me go ahead and add this custom domain name here. So if you remember, I did copied the company the detail here, so I'd be actually using it. And let me tell you, the complete domain name that will be available for me is So onelearndns.com with the say company 4247.onelearndns.com. So I'll go ahead, I will be using it. Now, as you probably would be aware of a fact that when we add a custom domain, so we will require to validate the domain by going to the DNS. We have to first create these records into the DNS. So I would just make a note of these records so I can actually go ahead and register them. So I need to go to a DNS where this particular zone is hosted, and there I need to create these records here. I have to create a TXT record, and then the TXT record should have the values. Like, see, I do have the value. I would need the MS value, so I would just paste it, and the other details I should be able to remember. I should be fine here. So once I've added these information, I would require to now go to my web machine, and I would require to install and configure the DNS services here. So here, let me see if the DNS is, DNS is, you see, already installed. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a primary zone. And into this primary zone, I would be creating my OneLearn DNS details. So let's create new zone. So it's a primary zone, forward lookup zone, and the zone name is going to be this. So I'll tell you the science behind it. We have this provider, Lab on Demands. They already have hosted this DNS server in public space, and a subdomain is created for me, and I'm registering the subdomain to be managed using my own personal DNS server. So here we see the DNS server is created, and once this DNS zone is created, I would go ahead and I would actually create the TXT record here. So here I'll go ahead and go to the new other records, and from this list, let's select the TXT. So record name is going to be @, and if you remember the TXT value, so TXT value I did captured. I'm going to go ahead and use it. I won't be able to do the Control-C, Control-V, so I would be using this option to paste it. Alright, so if it is not accepting the @ as a record name, then I'll leave it blank and I'll say OK. And this record is created. And once this record is created, I can go back to my Azure portal, and into the Azure portal, now I can hit on verify. I will wait for a couple of seconds, and you see my name is verified. So at this moment, I will take you back to this whiteboard, and let me tell you, if we're planning to install the Azure Active Directory, or if we are actually going to go ahead and use the Hybrid Azure Active Directory. So in the Hybrid Azure Active Directory, we do have a different authentication models available. We can choose those different authentication models according to the requirement. So assume this is my on-prem setup, and then I'm going to go to the cloud. Here I do have my Azure Active Directory. So the target for me here is to go for a kind of integration between the on-prem and into the cloud. So here we have a DC. So you know the machine names. Then I am actually going to use another machine here. This machine is going to be my Azure AD Connect. Then I do have another machine here. I will be using this machine as my ADFS. Now, if we talk about the different prerequisites at the different labels, so for example, if we talk about the ADFS, if you want to implement, then there are a few things that you will require: a public DNS, public registered DNS, so either you register the DNS and host the DNS records with any of your provider. like you purchasing it from Big Rock or the GoDaddy, or there's so many other. You purchase it from them, then you host your ADFS records into their DNS, but your ADFS server going to be available on-prem. It's good to protect the ADFS. In this particular example, I'm not protecting it. I am installing it. My installing the ADFS directly on a box which is connected to the public internet. So therefore, I would require a public IP address also, so we can reach to this ADFS server from the internet when needed. Then I also would require public SSL certificate. So as of now, you see what I have done is I have created few resources here. I actually have created, you see that? I already used the publicly registered DNS, and that particular activity you have just noticed. Public IP address is already available into this machine, and now I would require the SSL certificate. So there are various ways that you can get the SSL certificates. You can get the SSL certificate using different ways. You can actually use any of those ways to get them. There are free options also available. You can get it from those free options, or you can go ahead or you can purchase a valid certificate from a valid public CA. So doesn't matter whichever option you use, you ultimately will require to go ahead and bring the certificate. So once you got your certificates available, then you will be able to install and configure the ADFS. And once the ADFS is installed, then we can actually go ahead and go for the Azure AD Connect. Now we actually have again choices. We can install the ADFS separately, and then we can connect the same ADFS to our Azure AD Connect, or else we can actually do both of the activities at the same time. But ultimately, we need to have the certificate first. So now, before we actually could go ahead and get the certificates, so let me tell you, when we want our implementation is going to be, we will have the Azure AD, domain controller connected to the Azure AD Connect server, and from here we do have the outbound HTTPS connection established to the Azure Active Directory. Now, while we talk about the ADFS, ADFS connects to the Azure Active Directory, and in this condition here we need a HTTPS connection to be accepted into our ADFS server, and then from here we have a connectivity. So this is going to be a very high level diagram. So in using these diagram, we would actually follow those. Now let's try to secure some public certificates. So let's go ahead and let's try to get some DNS certificate, the public SSL certificates from some of the vendors. So I know some of the vendors where we can go ahead and can get some certificates. Like I'm going to go ahead. So I'll go to SSLs for free.com, and then I will download a certificate from there, and I will use that. So you also can use it once you generate the certificate here. The certificate will be valid for 3 months. You can actually use those. So here you need to kind of provide your DNS name, like this is my DNS name. I need a certificate for this. So hang on, let me see if they already have provided me some certificates. Sometime they do provide the certificates also. Here I got the DNS utility, and let me check the another machine. There I might have the certificate. So otherwise we need to go ahead and create the certificate. Alright, so I'll switch here to the DS1 machine, and I believe in the DS1 machine they have gave us the options for the certificate as well. Okay. All right. So, I mean, there's no requirement to go to the DS1. I actually could go back to my WAP machine and I can try generating the certificate right here. So they have provided the tool. I'll use the tool here. Okay, a bit of glitches. Here we are. So here I basically have the wildcard certificate available and I have the certificate password also available. So I now do not require to secure a certificate. Otherwise, if you want, as I've told you, you can go ahead. You can actually use a certificate from here, such as I'm going to generate a certificate, maybe asterisk dot, and whatever is the DNS name that I'm using, I can go ahead. I can generate a certificate from here. So let me show you this process also. I do have a certificate ready. I'll use it, but I'm showing you if you need a certificate. So how can you get it? So create the SSL for free. So here, this better you should create an account, because if you create an account, you will be able to use these certificates later as well. So, so you see that now is asking you to provide the validation. So you own this domain, you have to kind of prove it. So for SSL validation, the page is not being loaded properly. If you use Google Chrome, that will be better. Let me actually go ahead and show you those. I'll go to Google, because sometime the page does not loads properly when I'm using the Internet Explorer. Oh, it's all right. So I got this Chrome ready, and now let's go to sslsforfree.com, and I do already have an account, so I will log in. All right, so it's unable to locate it. Let me Google it. Okay, it's SSL for free. I actually said SSLs for free, so that's why it didn't work. I will go back. I'll first log into my account. I do have an account, so let me log in here. So you see that I do have a couple of certificates that I have obtained from here, and now I'll go ahead and purchase the additional, generate additional certificate. So here you will require to provide your DNS name. Like here I got the DNS name. So you can actually create the certificate specifically for your one host, or you can create a wildcard certificate that you can use for multiple hosts. So I'm going to create a wildcard. So asterisk dot the domain name and get the free SSL certificate. And now here is asking you to verify your domain. So in order to verify the domain, you will require to create. So you see that you will have to go ahead, create these txt records. So this is going to be your txt records value. Like I'll show you how do we create. So I'm going to go to these DNS. I'm in here and create new record. TXT, create record. So when I'm creating the record here, so I need to use the values here. So you see, I need to use Acme challenge underscore Acme challenge. You see the name is already part of it, so I'll not use. and the full name is here, and the second point here would be about the value. So it is giving you the options to see that, and TTL in seconds, but sometime you won't be able to set the time, so I'm unable to set this time here. So I'll say okay, done, and then I should be going ahead and I should be hitting on the download here. Like, see, first I'll be going ahead and verifying this record. So generally, depending on your DNS server's status, this could take longer. So you see, records found, make sure that matches the values. So see, TTL is not 1 second, so it's asking to set the TTL 1 second, but currently set to 3600, but I'm good with this, no problem. Now once validation is succeeded, I should be able to download the certificates. So once the certificates have been downloaded, because they will be sending us the certificates into the different formats, so we would actually require to go ahead and we would have to convert them to a certificate, a PFX certificate, to be used with our services. So you see, we do have an option to download the all certificates here. So we can download those and we can now actually use them as needed. So they have given a CA bundle, certificate, and a private key. Using those, you can use the open cert tools, and then you can convert them to be used with your IIS. So that's actually something how you can get the certificate. But for my case, take a look here. I already have the certificate available, and I also do have the different password for these PFX certificates available, which I'm going to use. So as I decided to kind of use this particular, configure this machine as my ADFS. So before I could actually go ahead and configure this machine as an ADFS, I'm going to go ahead and install this particular certificate here. So I'm going to go ahead and use it for the machine, and certificate path is valid. Let's go for it, and it's asking the password. So here I have this password. I'll copy this password, and next. So I am going to place it into the personal. By default it should go to the personal, but I'm making sure that it goes to the personal and finishing it. The certificate import is now successful. So once the certificate import has been successful, now I'm actually ready to perform the installation of my ADFS here. Though I'll not be configuring the ADFS, I'll just install the ADFS. But before I should install the ADFS, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually use one specific setting into the DC to ensure that when I'm trying to use the service account, so the service account is being used successfully. I could actually use the administrator account, but using administrator account will not be a good idea, and we should not be using them into the production. So therefore I'll actually avoid that. All right. So in this machine, into the PowerShell, I need to run a specific command. Running the PowerShell as an administrator will be a good idea. So I'm running this as an administrator. And there's a command that will help me generating a KDS root key. And I'm generating this KDS root key for, the backdated option. So see the command. KDS root key is actually needed for group managed service accounts, and instead of using an account in Active Directory, I'm going to use the KDS, this group managed service accounts to manage my ADFS. So you will be able to see that a GUID will be generated. That is all what I need to do at this moment here into my Active Directory. And then now I'll go actually to my next machine. And hey, because I'm not using the same DNS name, like for example, if I show you my whiteboard, then let me tell you, the DNS name that I have registered into the Azure Active Directory, that's actually goes, I mean, that's basically has a different name. Let me tell you the name. See. So you see, I'm using this name into the Azure Active Directory. So this is basically a name that I am using for my Azure Active Directory. Now, but when we talk about the name that I'm using on-prem, in the on-prem, it has a different name. So therefore, what I'm going to do is in the internal DNS, like internal DNS, if I talk about the internal DNS which I'm using here, that is aditum.com. So there are two different DNS setup we have. So here it is actually known as aditum.com. So what I'll have to do is I have to ensure that my internal DNS server also has the information about the OneLearn DNS service available. If not, then we would actually have the issues later. So let's go ahead and let's go to the DC1 and create the details for our DNS server. So I'm going to this server manager. I already have a DNS installed for my Active Directory. So I'll go ahead and I'll create the part here. So I'm creating it for a purpose, like I am actually trying to kind of go ahead and either I can create a secondary zone or I can actually create a direct primary zone with the same name that I have for my web. So I can actually, I mean, what I've created there for web. So I can actually go ahead and I can use any one of them. So I'm going to create a new zone, forward lookup zone, and into this new forward lookup zone, I'm going to go ahead and create a primary zone. And the zone name is going to be the same. And inside this, I'm going to register my web here as a ADFS. So here I would require the IP address. So let me see what's the IP address I have for my web, the internal IP. So I'm using kind of a split brain DNS to ensure that the transition or the smooth connectivities. I missed copying the name. So let me open another DNS manager. Going to the DNS, forward lookup zone, add item. So here you see that 0.12, 172.16.0.12. So when my internal machines requires the ADFS, so they will contact this IP address. And at the same time, I'll go to my web once again and I will create another DNS record. So when from the public internet, if anyone needs to reach to my DNS, so here it will have the record available. So I'll call it as an ADFS, and this time I'm going to use the public IP address here. So the public IP address, of this machine, we can get it easily by going to the here. You see that there's a network 7 that has the public connectivity, and here you see the IP address 199.101. I'll use it. 199.101 109.2. So what it's going to do is it's going to help me when from the public internet someone is trying to locate the ADFS service into my DNS, they will be redirected to this IP address. And when someone from the internal network is being, going to locate the ADFS, so they will be redirected to the internal private IP addresses. So we actually do have these options available. We have made these settings, and now I'm going to go ahead and perform the installation of my ADFS. So adding the role and features. To install the ADFS, you do have a different requirement. I do have a different video for that. You may do let me know if you want to kind of see the proper or the complete prerequisite and the other information about ADFS. I can share those with you. Right now, I'm doing a quick installation. Active Directory Federation Services. I'm doing a standalone installation right now. So you see, I'm going to kind of go ahead and perform the installation. So this installation is going to take about a minute or so. So until it's being done, I'll be on mute. Okay, so once the installation completes, you see that you will be asked to configure the federation services. So let's configure the federation services. So it will give you the choice to create a new federation server into this new server farm, or add the federation server to the farm. So I don't have any existing farm right now. I'm creating a new farm. So I'll select the first option, and then it will ask you to connect to the ADDS. So you see, I'm already using the administrative credentials to connect there. And then you will be asked to choose the certificate. So you see that I already have a certificate. Either if you don't have a certificate, then you can import it here. So what would be your federation service name? So I'm going to go ahead and give some service name here. For example, let's go ahead and give some name. All right, so let's call it an Ad Atom Corporation. And then a federation server display name. I'm sorry, so here federation service name should be different. This is a display name, and the federation server name is, I'm going to go ahead and call it ADFS dot, I have my own company details, like, see, this is the one that I want to name it. And then it will ask you, do you want to create a group managed service account, or you want to use existing one? So for this purpose only, I did generated the KDS root key. I will use it. So I'm going to create an account called ADFS. And do you want to use an SQL, or you want to use the Windows internal database? So I'm going to use the Windows internal database. I'm not going to use the SQL. If you have multi-server deployment, it's recommended to use the SQL. Even if you have a single server deployment, it's a good idea to use the SQL. And then here you could review the settings. Now you can go for the prerequisites check. If everything looks good, we can configure it. So this configuration once again going to take few minutes. So take a look here. It says that SSL certificate thumbprint. So here don't have a subject name that matches the specified federation service name called ADFS dot company then dot onelearndns.com. So looks like we have a problem with the certificate details. So let me go back. Let me start the configuration again. So I'll choose the certificate. I will actually reduce the display name. I will not give my own server name. I'll just keep it to this particular level. This is because the certificate that has been generated, that's generated only for one level of the wildcard namespace, while I was actually trying to use the multiple level of wildcard. So that's why it failed. And now you see that it looks like it's valid and it's going to move on. So hang on here until this is done. So here we go. We got this successfully installed. And now we basically would require to do a restart to get this working properly. So I'm going to go ahead and do a restart to this machine. So we just have install and configure a basic ADFS farm. Now I want to use this ADFS farm with my Azure Active Directory. And for that purpose, we would require to kind of go ahead and now create an hybrid identity architecture. For that, we would have to synchronize our Active Directory to the cloud or the Azure Active Directory. So we will do that, and for doing that, let me tell you certain prerequisites. So those prerequisites will be, you would require to have one global admin account created into the Azure Active Directory. So right now you see that I do have this particular account, but I have this user account which is I can use, but I will not use it. Instead, I'll create a new account and I will call this as an Azure AD admin. So let's call it as an AAD admin, and I'll give the display name Azure AD admin. So I would capture these details for this user. I need to capture the password. I would require to capture the username, and I will change the user role to global admin. And create the user. So once this user account is created, I am going to first change the user's password because that will be a requirement. So I'm going to go ahead, log into portal.azure.com, and I will sign in using the user account here. So you see a default password that requires to be changed. And just sign in. So this would be a confirmation that password has changed. And now I will log into my DC machine, DS machine, and by going to the DS machine, I'm going to change the I'm actually going to go ahead and change the perform the installation of the Azure AD Connect, and with the help of the Azure AD Connect, we will be able to set up the hybrid Azure identities. But before we do so, I also would like to kind of take an extra task here. That is, I'm going to go to my DC, and into the DC, I'm going to add my cloud domain, because for example, if you see on-prem, I'm using adatom.com. In the cloud, I have either on Microsoft or onelearndns.com. So those names I don't have available on prem. So in order to provide the better sign-on or the single sign-on capabilities, it will be a good idea to go ahead and kind of add those as an additional DNS, UPN suffix to our on-prem users. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the properties, and here I'm going to enter the OneLearn DNS details here. So we have captured the OneLearn DNS. See, I'm going to go ahead and add this. If you have on-prem and the cloud as the same domains, then you will not require to do this. But often you will require to do, because most of the organization might have the different names on-prem and the different names into the cloud. I'm talking about the DNS namespace. So what I'm going to do is, in order to test the single sign-on functionalities work properly, I'm going to go ahead and choose one of our set of users, I will migrate them to the cloud first. And in order to kind of go ahead and migrate them successfully to the cloud and provide them a seamless single sign-on with ADFS, I'm going to change their on-prem UPN suffix. So this will ensure that when the users are migrated to the cloud, so they basically goes with the OneLearn DNS settings. So this will ensure that we're going to go ahead and perform the name resolutions in a much easier way. So this was a task that I performed into the DC, and now I'm switching to the DS machine, and DS machine is the one where I'm going to perform the installation of my Azure AD Connect. I'm just trying to adjust the screen resolution. All right, so you see that in this machine I already have the Azure AD Connect installed, but if you do not know how to do that, so I'll go ahead and install the AD Connect and then install it once again. But I'm sure even though this is installed, this is not configured, so we can actually use any of the options. So let me actually go ahead and uninstall it. So let me see. So Azure AD Connect has been downloaded. So that's good. I would use it, and first I'll uninstall it. So the installation going to take about a minute or even less than that. You see it's done. So all right, so once the uninstallation is done, it does not require a restart, and now I can go ahead and I can perform the installation. So installing the Azure AD Connect has their own specific prerequisites, so you can take a look at them at Microsoft's website, and or else I do have a separate video for them. You can do let me know, I can share those to you. So you see in here I'm getting the option. So see, I agree with the license and continue. It will ask you, do you want to perform the installation in the express mode or you want to go for the customized mode? So as I'm planning to integrate this with ADFS, I must be going with the customized one, because express model will not allow me doing that. So here it will install the required components, and then I'll go for the user sign-in options, and there I'll be using the options accordingly. So hang on, it's being installed. Ideally it takes about a minute, and you see we got it installed. So once it is being installed, now we're going to go ahead and select the user sign-in options. So you see we have multiple of them, such as we synchronizing the user and their corresponding passwords, or we can go for the pass-through, or we can choose the ADFS. So we're choosing ADFS. So let's go for the ADFS, and you see that it's giving you the choice what exactly you would require. So that's fine. Let's go for this in the next page and see connect to the Azure AD. So this is where you will require to use the account that you created as a global admin account into your Azure Active Directory. I'm going to use this account. And then a password for it. So once I'm able to connect successfully to the Microsoft Azure Active Directory, then I will require to connect to the on-prem Active Directory domain services. So see that this is on-prem Forest, and here I'm creating a service account for this. I'm going to use my administrative credentials, who has the enterprise admin privileges, and then it will help me creating a service account here. So you see it's configured now. I'll go to the sign in features. So it's telling you that adatum.com is not added into the cloud, and you see this is verified, but this looks like we don't have it on-prem. So I'm telling that I'm going to continue without like matching all UPN suffix to the verified domain. I do already have some of them which I did, and here on-prem attribute I'm going to use as AzureAD username. So I'm going to use the UPN. And here it's asking what are the users that you would wish to take them to the cloud. So here I'm not going to take all of my users. Let's get started maybe with the sales team. And how do you identify your users uniquely in case if you have multiple forest available? So I'm telling that I'm using currently one. So I'm good here, and no additional filtering. Then additional features that if you would wish to select here, such as do you want to enable the password write back that allows users to kind of go ahead and reset their passwords. If they forget it, we have to configure them separately. And then I don't want to configure any of those. And see, Azure AD Connect required domain admin credentials for the for the domain in which ADFS need to be deployed or configured. So I won't do it into my adatum. So I'm giving the administrative credentials here, and then I'm using the password. So now it will ask you, do you want to install the ADFS or you want to create existing one? So I'm telling that I want to use my existing ADFS farm. So where exactly your ADFS farm is, so you have to specify that server name. So I'm going to browse and going to search here. So lon-wap1 is my machine. Let's search that, and this is where my ADFS has been deployed already. So it will validate the existing ADFS farm if it's already good, and if it finds everything good, then we would actually be able to see here. So it's asking which particular domain that you want to use as a federated domain. So I'm going to use this domain as a federated domain, and here we are ready to complete the setup. So once the synchronization has been completed successfully, it will configure the sign-in, and after the sign-in has been completed successfully, it will ask us to go for connectivity verification. So you see that it's configuring those. So hang on until it's been done. So you could see that it has configured the cloud domain, and now it's configuring the on-prem. So updating the synchronization rules, updating the partition information, see, disabling the password synchronizations, and now you see it's almost we are getting it completed. So here we go. It's configuring all the remaining options, and that it should be done in few moments now. Here we go. The installation has been completed successfully, and now we're going to go ahead and verify the connectivity. So I'm telling that I have already created both the records, so let's try verifying. So you see that internet DNS configuration could not be validated, and it says that, see, extranet access to the federation metadata could not be basically verified. So this is all of them are the DNS errors. So we basically need to kind of go ahead and fix them, and once we fix those, we will find them working. So if I first go ahead and take a look into this particular DNS itself, so we can, okay, sorry, we have to go to the DC, and into the DC we created the DNS settings. So hang on, I'll delete it. And I'll create a blank record. So it will use this, and same thing, I'm going to go ahead and create it back into the web, because I'm not going to use the ADFS kind of things here. Because my ADFS because of the certificate, the name of the ADFS is being different. So here you see we have this particular details. I created this with this name ADFS. So because of the certificate details, I am going to go ahead and change it. But before I change it, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create another record here, because that will be difficult for me to remember the IP address, so I'll first create it. And let's go back to the DS machine. I will first clear the DNS cache, and I will try testing it once again. And let's go to verify again, and here we go. So intranet was successfully verified, and extranet was also successfully verified. So once it is done, it means you are now good. So for example, if I try to go ahead and log into one of the client machines and then try to sign in to any of the cloud applications. So here currently you see I've logged in as an admin. This is a local user. I am going to pick a user that has been migrated to the cloud. For example, let's go ahead and talk about the users from the sales team. So you see I have a user called Abby. I'll be trying to I'll just sign in to this machine using the Abby Pearson's account. I hope this machine is part of the domain. I don't remember actually. And then when I try to sign into any cloud applications, this might take few minutes for me to kind of give the complete sign-on experience, single sign-on experience. That might take a few minutes. But right now, if we try to sign into any cloud application, let's see that what exactly is the behavior of the machine. All right, I thought it will change this display. Let me change the display settings a bit. So for an instance, let's go ahead and log into portal.azure.com. So here, see that it generally should not give us the option like this. So it is giving me the option for now. So no problem. B at the rate, then I am going to use the my cloud DNS. And then when I click next, you will be able to see that taking you to your organization's sign-in page, and this is where we are. So you see here I can give the username, and then I will be able to sign in. Now the path that actually not showing up here at this moment is it should be able to pick up the username and password automatically for us. So you see, this user was on-prem, we migrated that to cloud, and using our ADFS, we were able to sign in. So when we were in a domain, we have seen this. Now assume that we're going to go ahead and sign into the network or sign into those particular devices from outside the domain environment. Let's say I'm going to use it from the public internet. So when I'm going to use it from the public internet, how it works, let's take a look at that also. So portal.azure.com, and then I'm going to use the username here. Then here I need to use the cloud DNS, and see, taking you to your organization sign-in page, and now you will be able to see Editum Corporation's ADFS page. Here you need to provide your credentials, and once you did so, you will be able to sign into the applications that is registered to your Azure Active Directory. So this is how do you configure the ADFS. There's a lot of things that I did not cover up. So if you need more details of it, do let me know into my YouTube channel, and I will be able to share you some more details related to that. Thanks for watching.